Hello and welcome to another Sins of a Solar Empire 2 video. I'm Shadowcoast and welcome to the channel. In this one, we're going to be talking about Vasari and top technology and your technology order. Now, I will admit that Vasari is probably my weakest faction compared to TC and Advent. Advent's my main. But we're still going to review this, and I think I have a pretty good handle on it. But please comment on anything you'd suggest or swapping out or anything I might have missed. So without further ado, let's jump into Empire Research. This is all about resource generation. As a quick reminder, Vasari really focus on metal and crystal production, and their unique attribute is phase resonance, or unique faction mechanic, where we can augment speed, combat, and utility using abilities on our capital ships and titans. Now for Empire Research, starting off here, I highly recommend focusing on resource production. You are going to be at a resource deficit, be it metal or crystal, depending on what you're building, and most likely both at any given time. So the very first research after unlocking Empire 1, I'd recommend focusing on surface mining. We'll be wanting to upgrade surface mining everywhere we go because it's cheap and efficient. From there, I recommend immediately unlocking orbital extraction. While Vasari have limited civilian orbital spots, I do recommend using them to fill up your metal and crystal extractors, especially early game on harder difficulties, to make sure you have enough resources to produce more ships and other items, including research. From there, I always like to pick up the exotic refinery as soon as I can, just to pop one down to make sure that anything that requires it, we can pop in there and create the exotics. You might deprioritize this a little later. From there, I do recommend getting Phase Resonator. This unlocks the ability to place phase resonators in different areas or systems that you acquire, and that will unlock your unique faction mechanic. This will give you an early game boost, especially with mobility, which I like to prioritize so I can get to A to B very quickly, followed by combat and utility. Do not sleep on phase resonance. Make sure you're appropriately placing them to get some early game bonuses to outpace your enemies. Now from there, I do recommend unlocking one of these depending on what systems you have, so you can continue to colonize planets. You probably will want Arctic, Primordial, and Volcanic, maybe Crystalline. This is really dependent on the map you're playing on. Here, I prioritize Primordial because I have a Primordial planet right here. I guess I could have picked Arctic also, but keep that in mind. You're going to want to be colonizing planets, so you're going to probably want to pick these up, or maybe all three of them, or all four of them, depending on your map. From that perspective, once you're undertow in colonizing planets and expanding your empire, if you're playing as the faction that I prefer as a Vasari, you'll unlock labor camps. Now this is depending on which Vasari faction you're playing as, but if you are doing the more aggressive enslavement, core stripping one, I do recommend labor camps for this particular faction. From there, always good to get your minor faction abilities and influence points under tow. You are going to want to use minor factions. I feel like they are actually more critical to Vasari, especially for ones that will unlock more orbital slots defensively and or civilian-wise, depending on the minor factions you encounter. So you're going to want to pick that up. From there, mass enslaved labor. Again, this is specific to this faction. But it reduces the price because we're going to be dropping labor camps literally on everything we colonize to augment that orbital structure and surface mining rate for metal. After that, I do like phase space monitoring in Tier 1. We're still in Tier 1 here, and that is because it will allow us to see incoming enemies as they phase jump towards us, just so we can plan and prepare, which is great. From there, these you could probably deprioritize, but because you have limited civilian spots and planet spots, gaining mobile warfare labs and mobile empire labs that you can place on your capital ships to make sure you're adding enough empire and warfare research is always good. So if you can't pick these up, I do recommend grabbing them and then placing one or two on your capital ships as you produce them, so you can continue to advance and not have to use orbital slots for research stations. I tend to not use orbital slots for research stations playing as a Vasari. I put one or two on my capital ships here and there to help get these numbers up to advance quickly. As we enter Tier 3, there are a few things we're going to want to prioritize. First, entanglement and filtering. We're going to want to do this one as soon as possible. It's down here or right here, and that is because we are going to focus on mining rates. You're going to be at a deficit if you're producing and expanding rapidly, so keep that in mind. You can see here improved orbital extraction. We're going to focus on that to then augment our extraction, so very resource driven from this perspective. Now, there are a few options here. You have metal nanite base and crystal nanite base unlock. I would probably only focus on one of these depending on what you're at a deficit on. So if you're lacking metal, I get the metal one and place one or two of these on a few planets, vice versa, crystal. If you need both, you can grab both, but we're not going to want to have too many of these built because there are other planetary slots we're going to want to use. From there, improve reaction design, antimatter utilization. I do recommend this one. It's just going to make it easier for ships to use their moves on cooldown. There's some very powerful early game moves you're going to want to use, so keep that in mind. Long range jumps, I feel like we're going to have to unlock this regardless of the faction you play as, so do recommend taking this into your earlier build in Tier 2. And then from there, optimize phase drives, phase jump charge time. So these are down here, still in Tier 2, so keep that in mind. Now, given the order here, we're just going to quickly go through it just for your own sake, and then we're going to talk about Tier 3. In Tier 3, there's some interesting buildings and unlocks that are critical. I ran out of resources to acquire to outline this video. Keep this in mind. Phase gate unlock, this is hypercritical. It is a faction mechanic. You can place these in different systems and then instantly jump system to system, leveraging the phase gates, which is critical and a unique faction mechanic that allows you to dominate the map, bringing your main force here to there almost instantaneously. So we are going to prioritize unlocking phase gates and then strategically placing them. I just don't have Quinarium here to click this one, so this is one I would prioritize on the offset of hitting level 3, and something you're going to want to do by mid-game so you can jump around and address enemies as they attack your different systems. From there, it's really all about augmenting our mining again. So I personally like Matter Hypercompiler Unlock. We're going to maximize our basically surface mining and orbital extraction mining rates using this building. I'll place these on most of my planets, obviously planets that have more slots here that we can fully fill in. We're going to prioritize placing those first. From there, you can think about advanced orbital extraction. If you need this, definitely grab it and place them. If not, you can maybe forego it if you're doing well on your resources. After that, depending on the map you're playing, always good to get wormhole stabilization, so keep that in mind from that perspective. And then catalyze atomic sorting. This is one of the first ones you're going to get. Just get it. You're going to want that mining rate up from that perspective. Now, there's some other cool things here that I deprioritize, so you can get ocean floor miner unlock. Basically these are based off what kind of planets you colonize. So if you're on volcanic, I would get the volcanic ones. If you have more primordial, get the primordial ones. Ocean, get some more of the ocean ones. So these are kind of all based on fit for purpose. Here I picked primordial because I have my primordial planet down here, assuming I'm going to have a bunch of primordial planets. So that's just for example. But these are all basically situational on what kind of planets do you have, what do you need to augment. Same up here. Now, we're going to want to get culture rate and xeno mining here. These are going to be helpful, friendly planet dominant cultures. You're going to want to make sure you don't completely forget about driving culture rates. The Advent will absolutely eat you alive, given some of their unique faction mechanics and abilities, and playing as this particular faction where we're a little more warmongering, aggressive. Don't lose sight of culture. This is a critical one that we're going to want to grab. You'll see there are a few other culture ones along the ways that you can pick up. And then again, full lockdown. This is upgrading labor camps just to completely optimize it. Now, there are some abilities here where you're allowed to kind of strip the planet. So if you're going to want to do that, you can think about that. I personally don't like stripping the planets because then they become kind of useless later on, but keep that in mind. As we enter tier 4 here, again, there's just, a bunch of good upgrades augmenting your economy, so make sure you're doing that. Surface mining rate, orbital extraction rate from that perspective. And then I will recommend thinking about some of these more expanding resonance and other abilities that link into your faction mechanic. And then out here, it's more about starbase items and some other ones. You're going to want to pick up all of these just to kind of improve from a, call it, Empire civilian research perspective. So those are my thoughts on Empire research. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let's jump over to warfare research. And as I do this, I'm just going to pull this up here. Warfare research. Vasari that I have found, I'm playing anything higher than, or unfair or higher difficulty, this order really matters. Now let me know what your builds are, but I have found a balanced build with a good hefty portion of just ships, and where's the strikecraft ship, Laserac, like spamming a few of these, so I'll probably have 6 to 8 of Desetro unlocks, and they're basically mobile factories, and they synergize with some of the reclamation of resources on what's destroyed, and then basically trying to do a more, call it drone or fighter-based is good. Now this will be complemented with hefty numbers of Solsarak, Tosarak, and Conrox. So basically going to want 30 of each, 40 of each, and then we're just producing them live from the Gisatra. So given that mindset of the build, let's jump into the order of research. And basically order matters here. I ran out of resources, so we're going to call out some other stuff as we go. So off the bat, captive suppliers, we're going to want to make sure we expand our max supply immediately so we can start building our fleets. Getting that second or third capital ship is critical. From there, I do recommend unlocking all 3 ships because we're going to want to be building them in tier 1. Solsarak here, we can see down here, this is going to have our point defense pulse guns. So early game, this will be critical to reducing the missile spam. Even late game, you're going to want a bunch of these to reduce the missile spam, especially against Advent and their Tempest spams, which are still overpowered in my opinion. I love it playing as Advent. I hate it playing as any other faction outside of Advent. Tosarak Raiders, they do decent damage. They have that light phase missile. They're going to be really important to have a fair number of both of these in your lineup throughout the game to take out those smaller ships, try to reduce the missile spam. You're going to want a hefty number of Ravastra skirmishers. I put these as medium to low priority after you get mid to late game because you're going to want to spend these supply points on either these guys or the Conrock Assailant. This is our medium phase missile ship. It's fairly quick. It gets in there, and you can upgrade the phase missiles later. So back to here on tier 1. I'm all over the place. I apologize. We're going to focus on kind of the ships up here, grabbing them. From there, I do recommend grabbing all the upgrades to make your ships a little more tanky and survivable. One of the new unique faction mechanics is that we have regeneration of all of our ship components, which is fantastic here. So shields, armor, as well as hull points can regenerate. So we're going to want to upgrade the regeneration and kind of the core value, right? Max hull points are going to be really important. And then defensive uplink, I do recommend getting this. You're going to want to drop these on planets that have strategic priorities to increase those military orbit slots because we're going to be lacking in general, and it's going to be critical to expanding and defending our territory. So once we're through tier 1, and honestly, if you can jump to tier 2 after grabbing some of the ones up here, you might do so and then come back and get these. It really depends on your resource management and how you're upgrading. Tier 2 is when things get interesting and really critical. Obviously, always maximize your supply. This is one of the first things you're going to want to do. Always try to keep your fleets at max supply so you have the number of ships out there fighting. I personally prioritize the Conrock. This is kind of our go-to damage dealer with the medium phase missiles that we're going to upgrade here. From there, you're going to probably want to pick up mobile phase detection. I personally like this. because I always have a Severan Overseer in my group, and this is going to allow us to see enemies coming in. Pair that with mobility and resonance, you can jump out of battles you're not going to be able to win, and that will be very critical playing as the Vasari, especially on higher difficulty levels, because if you're going to get those incoming ships that have those Tempest spams, get out of there, and then what you're going to want to do is position your ships so you have all of your Solceroks and Toserok Raiders and even Conrock Assailant missiles right where the Tempests are going to jump in, or any of their missile boats are going to jump in, so you can take them out as quickly as possible before their larger capital ships and Titans arrive. So this ability is helpful because you either run away if you're not in position, or you can rush to position to take out some of their faster, smaller moving ships that are going to be very deadly to us in large quantities. And that's one of the reasons we're going to have some of these smaller ships in higher numbers for us. From there, it's really about, in my opinion, point defense. Like I said, I'm not worried as much about the TEC. I don't have as much trouble with them. Advent are a problem for me playing as Vasari. Precise turret servos, this I think helps. It still feels underwhelming, but you're going to want to pick it up, especially for that spam of the Solcerok. You're going to see Solcerok here in the kind of middle right here are going to get upgrades to the point defense systems. From there, regeneration bay unlock. This is critical to your defensive structures. You're going to want one per system to augment your defensive structures, and then focusing on hull regeneration and other aspects. Now, here, armor, regeneration, etc. I do recommend grabbing the shield, but I tend to circle back and grab these a little later. Bomber armor unlock, also helpful if you want to place this on ships, but I tend to skip this one in general. Now, I do want to call out the fact that upgrading our wave and pulse weapons is important. I tend to circle back and do this after I get to tier 3. And because once I get to tier 3, what I'm really going to focus on is maximizing our supply, as always, priority, but then getting both the, is it the Lasserok? Where is it here? Yeah, the Lasserok Strike Craft Squadron, so carrier, effectively, transport carrier. We're going to want to produce that, but most importantly, the Jujusa Tra unlock. So the Jujusa Tra here is a ship that can basically produce other ships and gather, you can see the ships it can produce there, and gather resources. So once you get this, make sure you also pick up mobile retrofit and also debris reclamation. Unlocks Jutro fabrication cruiser ability, metal salvage, crystal salvage. So as you're engaging, you're collecting the resources from the destroyed ships and then immediately producing more ships. So effectively, you're going to want anywhere from 4 to 8 of these in your main fleet, and you're just going to be spamming Toserok and Solcerok and Conroks. I believe it can produce Conroks. Yeah, it can. Ships, so you have massive amounts of these flooding the zone, and as they go down, new ones are popping up at the point of battle, so there's no transportation, no transit for your ships. So that's kind of the build I'm going with and prioritizing. From there, move on to enemy warheads upgrade and phase missile augment. So these are absolutely critical to bolstering your phase missile weapon damage so you can take out enemies faster. From there, and I ran out of resources here, so these are just not selected because I don't have enough resources to select them. I do recommend jumping down to the Orculus unlock. This is going to be our main defensive structure or starbase, so I'd pick this up along with some of the upgrades. In particular, I would grab the efficient hangars and debris regeneration unlock, which allows us to restore hull and armor based off nearby destroyed units. From there, it's all about thinking about kind of augmenting our ships in this tier. Now, at this point, once you get the Orculus unlock, this is where I would recommend circling back and picking up the wave, pulse, beam damage increases here. Because if you're at this point and you have some good defensive structures, you might have a minute to breathe before advancing. Once you get to tier 4, this is really going to be prioritizing our ability to build our Titan. So make sure you unlock that, get your Titan out there. It is going to be hyper critical. You want to rush Titan as soon as you can while supporting your expansion and military dominance. After that, there are just different things that we can unlock for our starbase and our ships. So make sure you grab some of these to really beef up your star bases. You're going to want them, to be fully upgraded. And so one of the things that I do recommend, mobile rulership unlock. If you are having a tough go of this, if you have a ship with this item, if you lose all of your main planet and stuff, you're not going to lose the game. That's a unique faction mechanic. I kind of like it. I don't tend to pick them up. Like, if I'm going that direction, I'm in pretty bad shape and probably won't recover. But, it's a cool faction unlock that I like. And then the other one that I wanted to say is Planetary Shield Array. So for these on Starbase items, we're going to want this. We're going to need to shield, especially against TC and even Advent and other Vasari factions. So don't sleep on this. I feel like a lot of people kind of forget the shield, and that's not a good thing. From there, it's just upgrading weapons. Obviously, I recommend focusing on phase missiles. That's part of my key build, spamming those con rocks, but obviously other weapons. And then up here, we can improve our reclamation rate for the Jessotra. I cannot say that. Jessotra fabrication cruisers. So make sure you don't miss these out here. And then obviously max supply is nice. The Volrock unlock. This is a nice ship. I just haven't found it as useful. The spamming of the con rocks can take out most enemy capital ships when they're phase missiles. But let me know what you think in the comments. Tier 5, obviously max supply out. Always max supply first in my opinion. And then we're just going to have some nice upgrades here. Always prioritizing phase missiles based off the build I was talking about and grabbing these as they come. The one item that I do want to call out is a Orculus phase jump drive. Allows Orculus Starbase to phase jump to adjacent gravity wells. This is a really cool mechanic. I personally like it. Just bringing in a Titan and an Orculus is probably going to get the job done with your main force, regardless if they're doing their Tempest spam or not. Now, if you're at this phase, battles get pretty intense because you're just throwing ships at each other. And so having that extra kind of starbase in the mix, especially offensively, as you're expanding, is very helpful. So keep that in mind. So that is my opinion on Vasari, kind of builds. Let me know what you think in the comments here. What did I miss? Anything critical? Again, the other Vasari faction plays a lot differently. I found that, especially on higher difficulties, they're for me impossible to win once we get past unfair. So maybe I'm just playing them wrong, but if you want a video on that, I can spend a little more time. And thanks for watching. Shadow Coast out.